What's up, people? Today we're going to learn the race between the king and the pawn when a pawn is passed. We are going to understand when the pawn is going to promote and how to promote the pawn, and some defensive resource to defend the pawn promotion. Okay, first, in all of these endgames we should calculate. When we have a passed pawn, we should calculate the race. a4, king d5, a5, king d5, a6, king c6, a7, king here, a8, and the king defend the pawn. So, okay, first that we calculate the normal race with a4, king e4, and everything. Now we are going to learn two concepts. The first one, idea to try to win these endgames with the pawn, just blockading the black king. And then we're going to learn another idea where it looks that the pawn is going to promote, another defensive idea to defend with the king, invented by Reti. But okay, first we're going to learn the concept of try to promote this type of pawns. Okay, first we should calculate the race. We watched that the race doesn't work, so now it's time to try to create something. We are watching that this pawn is going to go till here, and this is the path of the king. So the solution of this exercise is more or less easy. We should blockade the diagonal of the king and the way of the king to defend the pawn with d5, and after it takes d5, now e4, and this pawn have the free way because the king cannot come to d5 because this pawn blockade the square, and in this position the king just have one path to defend the promotion. So that's the idea of win the position with white. Okay, this is another sample, but here of course the race doesn't work because a7, king b7, but now we are not going to advance any pawns to blockade the diagonal because this pawn is blockading the diagonal and black have the pawn on c7. So we just should wait with king h3, just putting black in foot1. So black should move the king, and with every move of the king is going to allow a7, a8. So okay, the first idea of try to promote this pawn, of course, is count tempos and race, but once that the race is tight, the first idea is blockade the path of the king with a pawn sacrifice normally, and in this second idea the path of the king is not blockaded, but we are going to place the black king in foot1. And to end with the idea of try to promote a pawn, we're going to see this one. Because okay, the passed pawn is going to be the a pawn. Okay, now it's not passed, but after a4 he capture and we recapture, the a pawn is going to be passed. So first we should count tempos. For example, a4, pawn takes, but now the problem is that king g3 is very, very annoying because okay, it's true that the black king cannot reach to defend a8, but black is coming first with checkmate. So we should take care about king g3. Other option is capture the pawn with the king, of course, avoiding king g3. But here black are racing time to capture the pawn with king e7 and all this race, and finally black reach the b7 square. So okay, first one that we calculate the fastest move with a4. We watch that king g3 is coming with the advance of the h pawn. After what's that, we should think about capture the e2 pawn, but here we are watching that the king is coming to d8 and then to a8 to defend the pawn. So what should be the move here? f6, obligating black to capture here, and now this path of the king is blockaded. So now king g2 important, not allowing king g3 and the h pawn runs. King g5, and now let's see that the black king cannot come to d8 and to a8 to defend the pawn. So now the a pawn start to run. a4, king e5, but okay, the black king find a new way to try to defend the pawn. If we play a5, he's coming with king d5, king here, and he defends the pawn. So we are going to make another blockade of the path of the king. Here c6 doesn't work because d6 and this is coming anyway. So here the correct breakthrough and the correct pawn sacrifice is d6, and after she takes c6, the third pawn sacrifice. But now all the path of the black king is blockaded, so we can promote our pawn. Okay, these three examples are very, very interesting, and I hope that you really understand the concept. And now we're going to watch the other side. We're going to watch how to defend this pawn when the tempos doesn't work for us, and if we just count and we see that the pawn promote first and we reach the king, some plans to try to hold the position. And here we are in the idea of Reti. Okay, this pawn is so close from the promotion, and this black king is very close from this pawn. So looks like black can, for example, if we try to promote this pawn, the black king can defend, and if we came to this pawn is going to promote. But here appears the ready idea, which like make the both things at the same time. At the same time that we are coming to this pawn, at the same time we are trying to help to promote this pawn. So for that reason, the king can move in diagonal. So we're going to play king e7, placing the king closer to his pawn, to this pawn, and closer to his pawn, trying to help the promotion. For example, h4 here, and now king f6. Yeah, as I say, at the same time, being closer to this pawn and being closer to this pawn. For example, if h3 doesn't work because now king e7 and is promoting the pawn. So, but okay, black have like two tempos free for this pawn, so he can just came to attack the c pawn, and now king e5. And if h3, now king d6. That's the idea, to at the same time try to attack the h pawn, but being closer to the c file to promote our pawn. So okay, in 1921, this idea of Richard Reti helps so much on chess, the world of chess, with great theoretical contribution. So we're going to see more, yes, more games with a similar situation of the Richard Reti idea. Okay, this is a study from 1947, like 25 later after the Reti idea, but the concept is very similar. For example, here with white, if we try to promote this pawn, the black king is coming, and then black is running with this one. So we're going to make the same idea, but in a different way. We're going to play king c8. Because okay, yes, play king e8 doesn't work because we didn't want to be closer to the h file. We want to be closer to the first rank with the square to promotion. So doesn't matter if we go king e8 or king c8, because we want to be closer to the file. So we play king c8, being closer to this pawn, king c6, king b8. For the moment, we are not watching the Reti idea, but after king b5, finally king b7, being closer to the first rank and helping this pawn. Now a6 is coming, so black should capture, and now king c6, and the king entering in the square after king d5. So yeah, I really like this example. I think it's a little bit prettier than the Reti idea, but okay, the study of Reti was 25 years before. But okay, this is very similar. Okay, let's see more example of this theme. Okay, this is of a real game in 1928. And here, between two guys who his names are Charitsev. And here is very interesting because it looks like black is winning the endgame, because c8 with the first move that we should calculate can be faced by bishop f5, king c7, bishop takes, and b5 winning. And here king d6 with another logical move, trying to game to this pawn, doesn't work because bishop f5, king d5, and bishop b8. And if you play king a7, b5, but here white have this incredible result with king c8, attacking the pawn, forcing the pawn to move, and now returning to d7, and it's incredible before. And now king d6, because now white is threatening to promote. Black should play bishop f5, and now we're going to attack the bishop at the same time that we are coming to defend this pawn. This is harder because okay, there are a bishop, it's not only a pawn, but the idea is more or less the same. I recommend you to all the position that I'm showing before that I solve the position, put over the board and try to think the position. With all the games that I saw and all the exercise that I'm showing, I work with them many times. I solve all of the exercise 3 or 4 times. So it's not only to watch. I recommend you to put the exercise over the board and try to think about the position. Okay, here this is similar than the Reti idea. The endgame is completely winning for white, of course. For example, just queen c4, and this, sorry. This is queen b5 is stalemate with queen b1. Okay, here queen c2, or for example queen c2 directly, should be just completely winning for white. But Frederick J thought that he is winning with any moves, and he played king c3, because he thought that after b1 the pawns endgame are completely winning. But after king b4, he missed the move king b2, threatening a3, and if white capture, now king c3 coming to the defense of the pawn. So Frederick Yates failing this in this idea. Okay, this is another one against a game between Emmanuel Lasker and Sigbert Tarras, two of the greatest players of all time, and they miss in this concept. Here black is completely winning, for example with bishop e6 is the most natural move, and just capturing this pawn. But he thought that he's winning entering the pawn endgame, but the pawn endgame is a draw, because after king takes, now it's the same. Here a5 by black, black should try to create a pass pawn in the queen side, of course, but now h4, king g4, and the same, the right idea, king g6. At the same time that we are threatening to play h5, we are threatening to gain to the queen side to defend the pawns. So okay, let's see I think two more examples, yes, two more examples. Okay, this is harder, maybe, but okay, maybe more or less easy. Because okay, black. Okay, here, yeah, okay, black is running here with c4, c3, c2, c1. And with white, this pawn is blockaded by the knight, this pawn is blockaded by the knight, this pawn is blockaded by the king. So our only hope is promote this pawn. If we move any other move who is not king g8, for example h5, now king f7, and now both white pawns are blockaded and this pawn is running. So the only moves with white, of course, is king g8, king f5, and now again the red idea, king g7. And if king g4 coming for the pawn, if c4 it's h5, of course, and if king g4 again, king g6 threatening h5, and now finally the king came to the defense. Okay, this exercise here, g4 should be the move, because okay, black, this is the last position that we're going to watch. The c pawn is running, and looks like this king have these both pawns well stopped, and the white king is also far from the action. But we have the result with g4, and for example, if king takes, now the same move as always, king g6, and if the king comes, now we enter in the square and we capture the pawn. But okay, black can still fighting with king g5, but white can still put in pressure with great move king g7. h4 could be a possibility, but king h4 instead, of course, king g4, king g6 with the same idea. But if king h4, now black have time to come with the king to help the pawn. So for that reason, king g7 first is stronger. And now if g5 finally comes h4, if king h4, king f6, king here, and king e5, and if black captures this pawn, just king g4, king h4, and now king h5, finally entering in the square and drawing the game. So I hope that you learn these two concepts. First, how to, okay, first we should calculate if the pawn promotes or not. But then once we calculate that the pawn is not promoting in a normal race, first, if we are the side who have the pass pawn, we should try to find some ways to promote, for example, sacrificing pawns to close diagonals or to close the path of the king. And if we are in the defensive side with the king, we should, and we calculate that we can stop the pawn, we can use our self pawns to deviate the opponent king and win some tempos to reach the pawn using the red idea. So okay, I hope that you learn and enjoy with this video, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.